Good afternoon, everyone. So welcome to this briefing by the Special Representative of the Secretary General for Mali and head of the UN Peacekeeping Mission in Mali, El-Ghassim Wane. I can see him on the screen at the back. We can probably put him on the screen here so we can all see him properly. Excellent. Excellent. So as you all heard him this morning, he briefed the Security Council. He will have a few opening comments for you here, and then he will take your questions. Mr. Wane, can you hear us?
Yeah, I do. Thank
Excellent.
you so much. I do.
Good to have you with us, even though it's virtually. Well, if you're ready for your opening remarks, please go ahead, and then we will take a few questions.
Yeah, thank you so much for this opportunity. I wish I could do it in person. Unfortunately, I'm not in New York, so we'll do it remotely. And thank you for your availability. I had the opportunity of briefing the Security Council during its open session this morning, afternoon Bamako time, on where we stand on the drawdown and withdrawal of MINUSMA. Which is taking place in the context of Resolution 2690, which was adopted following the request by the Malian authorities for the withdrawal of the mission. I did indicate that in that context, that immediately after the adoption of the resolution, we have established a coordination mechanism with the Malian authorities. We have had many meetings at technical level, but also at political level. And these coordination mechanisms are working effectively. We have also prepared and shared with the Malian authorities our drawdown and withdrawal plan, which is unfolding in two phases. The first phase, which started on 17th of July, saw the closure of bases in Ogosagu in central Mali, in Ber and Gundam in the Timbuktu region, and in Menaka a few days ago, 3 days ago. And that has completed phase one of the withdrawal, which took place on time and did not experience many challenges, even though we did have some incidents, in particular during the withdrawal of our troops from Ber, where they were attacked twice. Fortunately, we did not have, no one was killed. We have 4 peacekeepers who were wounded. They are recovering, and their situation, the injuries were not as serious as we feared initially. Now we'll be entering into phase 2, which will see the closure of bases in the far north of Mali, that's Kidal, Aguelhok, and Tesselit, and then bases in Douentza and Mopti in the central part of Mali. And we will keep 3 locations, Tombouctou, Gao, and Bamako, for the liquidation period, which will start on January 1st. So that process so far is proceeding well, and every effort is made to ensure that we indeed complete this process by the agreed deadline of 31st December 2023. I also would like to add that we are working on the transfer of task. As you know, MINUSMA had an expensive mandate, and on the basis of that mandate, we were carrying out several tasks in support of Malian people and in support of Malian authorities in different locations where we are deployed. And I believe the work done has proved to be very effective, very tangible benefit for the local populations. And obviously, our wish is to see those tasks continued by the Malian authorities primarily, and to the extent possible with the support of other stakeholders, including the UN country team. In that context, we have organized a roundtable in early August involving different ministries from Mali, as well as our colleagues from the UN country team and other stakeholders, including ECOWAS, the African Union, and the European Police cooperation mission in Mali. And that roundtable made it possible for us to provide briefing to our Malian counterparts on what we have been able to do, the achievements, the limitations, and what needs to be taken forward. The Malian authorities have assured us that they are ready to assume their responsibilities, but it is clear that resources would be required for that to happen in full. For the rest, obviously, we're proceeding also with the separation of our civilian staff. That process is ongoing in line with the UN rules and regulations, and repatriation of our uniformed personnel as we close offices. A last point is to speak of the challenges. This is a very complex undertaking. The mission was built over a period of 10 years, and we have to close it in 6 months. And Mali, as you know, is landlocked, infrastructure is limited, and insecurity is a reality. And carrying out this task of withdrawal and drawdown within the agreed timeline is not an easy undertaking, but we're determined to do everything possible to make this, to ensure that this is happening. Obviously, development that we did not anticipate, such as the current situation in Niger, could potentially impact some of the logistical aspects of the operations, but we're monitoring the situation and will adjust as necessary to make sure that we comply with the agreed deadline of December 31. Maybe in concluding, I just would like to stress how important the work MINUSMA did was in Mali. I also would like to pay tribute to our peacekeepers, many of whom made the ultimate sacrifice. I think they did a good job in conditions that were extremely challenging to start with, given the prevalence of armed conflict, terrorism, and insecurity in Mali. But I think the mission did a very good job in support of the Malian people and Malian authorities. And now that the mission is leaving, our attention will turn, of course, to the role of our colleagues from the country team. They were here before MINUSMA deployed. They will stay after MINUSMA deploys. After MINUSMA withdraws, it's important that they are able to pursue their work as efficiently as they can in support of Mali. And in that respect, the mobilization of additional resources is of paramount importance, and I hope that donors will show generosity in this respect. These are the few words I wanted to say before taking the questions. Thank you once again for the opportunity available to me.
Thank you so much. Let me give the floor first to Associated Press, Edie.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wane, on behalf of the United Nations Correspondents Association for doing this important briefing. I have two questions. First, the latest report by the UN panel of experts monitoring sanctions against Mali said that Islamic State extremists have almost doubled the territory they control in Mali in less than a year, and their al-Qaeda-linked rivals are also capitalizing on the deadlock and perceived weakness of armed groups that signed the 2015 peace agreement. What impact will the withdrawal of MINUSMA have on the fight against these terrorist groups? And secondly, in your briefing to the Council, you said that in concrete terms, it entails the repatriation of 12,947 uniformed personnel, the separation of 1,786 civilian staff, the repatriation and or relocation of a load of approximately 5,500 sea containers of contingent and UN-owned equipment. How how many of those personnel and how many of those containers do you expect to leave Mali by the end of the year? Thank you.
You can go ahead and answer right away. We'll take questions one by one.
Oh, thank you so much. Let me maybe start with the last part of your question. And I think the volume of sea containers you mentioned speaks, underlines the challenges confronting us, the extent of the work we need to do to ensure that the mission closes on time. I can't, at this point, it's difficult to indicate how many sea containers will be transferred out of Mali by the end of this year, but we're doing our level best to get as many of those containers out of Mali. What is certain is that we'll not be able to get them all out of Mali by the end of the year, and that's why part of the work entails also the establishment of the 3 bases I referred to earlier in Tombouctou, in Gao, and in Bamako to facilitate the liquidation as part of the liquidation period, and during which, of course, whatever containers were not transferred out of Mali between now and the end of the year will be shipped out of Mali during the liquidation period. But our effort is focusing on ensuring that as many of those containers as possible are transferred out of Mali. And I think it's important to keep in mind some of the logistical constraints. As we know, to transfer, let's say, just to give you an example, to get containers out of Tombouctou, give you one example, we need to cross the river. There are limitations as to the number of containers we can get through the river per day. That's an element we need to keep in mind. There are some logistical constraints linked to the state of the road between Tombouctou and Mopti, and of course the issue of security, which I have referred to. But again, we're determined to do our level best to get as many containers as possible out of Mali. Back to the first part of your question about the expansion of the activities of the Islamic State. I think what I would like to say is that the last report of the Secretary General, which was submitted in June, and which provided an update on the situation in Mali, including the security situation, did indeed document the expansion of the activities of the Islamic State in the Gao and Menaka region. And I think this is the context in which the ST, among other factors, recommended the renewal of the mandate for one additional year, precisely to assist in protecting civilians to the extent possible and support the implementation of the peace process. A decision based on the request by the Malian authorities, the Security Council decided to terminate the mandate, and now, of course, our focus is on the withdrawal of the mission by the end of this year. We have made progress, but again, challenges are huge, but we're determined to make sure that indeed this will be achieved by the deadline of 31st December 2023.
So my question is, what will the impact of the fact that MINUSMA will not be there on this continued possible extension of the Islamic State and the Al-Qaeda-linked groups in Mali?
Well, the resolution, as you know, provided that the withdrawal has to be orderly and coordinated, and that's what we are doing with the Malian authorities. And part of the work we are doing, especially when it comes to the transfer of tasks, aims at ensuring that the Malian authorities will take over some of the tasks we were performing, including as with respect to the protection of civilians. That the purpose of the roundtable we organized in early August. We are doing our best to make sure that the Malian authorities are briefed to the full extent possible on the scope of the work we are doing, on the situation on the ground, as we see it, so that they are ready to assume fully their responsibilities once MINUSMA has completed its withdrawal. It's difficult at this stage to assess the full impact of the withdrawal of the mission, but what is certain is that it will require that the Malian authorities make renewed efforts to ensure the full security of their people.
We have a lot of questions in the room. I will go to Benno, then Michel, Amélie, then you. Let me start with Benno.
Thanks, Special Representative, for this briefing. It's Benno Schwinghammer with the German press agency DPA. Many people said with the UN withdrawing, especially from remote areas in the north, that there will be a vacuum that might be possibly filled with extremists. Now you are withdrawing. Do you already see signs of this already on the ground? And maybe a second question, the Malian forces want to take over the UN bases. It's known that they are supported by mercenaries of the Wagner group. However, experts say they need much more forces to do that, because we know the UN withdrew with more than 10,000 people. Do you have any indications that there will be additional Wagner forces arrive in Mali, or did they already arrive?
You know, the resolution provides for an orderly withdrawal within the time frame that was availed to us. Whenever we leave a particular base, we hand it over to the designated Malian civilian authority. I think that's what we have done so far, and that's what we intend to do for all the remaining bases. And obviously, you know, once we have completed that task, and once we have completed our environmental obligations and other related obligations, our responsibility stops there. As far as the gap that the departure of the mission will create, it is clear that a mission of the size of MINUSMA, of course, plays an important role in the field, be it in Menaka or in the far northern part of Mali, or even in central Mali. And if the authorities don't take the necessary measures, there will be gaps. Hence the importance of the work we are doing with them, to make sure that they are fully briefed on the extent of the work we are doing and on what they need to do to ensure that there are no gaps. During the roundtable we had with the Malian authorities, they did state that they were fully ready to assume their responsibility as far as the security of the people is concerned, and our duty is to make sure that they have all the information they need to perform that task as effectively as possible.
Michel?
Thank you, Michelle Nichols from Reuters. Thanks so much for the briefing. Is MINUSMA facing any challenges from Wagner fighters as you withdraw? And have you noticed any changes, or what are your observations of Wagner in Mali since the death of Prigozhin last week? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Again, just to state that we operate within the framework of Resolution 2690, which has spelled out very specific tasks to be performed by MINUSMA, and these are the tasks we are carrying out currently. We work, of course, with the host authorities, and as I indicated earlier, the coordination mechanisms that have been put in place are working fairly effectively. There are challenges, obviously. I do, and we do work with them through different channels to make sure that those challenges are addressed. But those are challenges that are linked partly at times to issues of importation of goods, or at times freedom of movement, which we are handling with the Malian authorities. And so far, they have been globally very supportive of the efforts we are making.
Amélie?
Sorry. Thanks. Amélie Bottelier from AFP News Agency. You said this morning that the withdrawal is on track to be finished by the end of the year, but you also listed a number of challenges that the second phase is facing in the context of logistic challenges and security challenges. So how worried are you that any kind of issue could delay the departure of the troops, and that it won't be completed by the end of the year, especially since the Malian ambassador said this morning that they will not agree to extend the time frame of the withdrawal. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Just maybe to reiterate that we are determined to make sure that the withdrawal is completed within the stipulated timeline. And as I indicated earlier, phase 1 has already been completed. Obviously, phase 2 will be far more challenging because it will apply to a much larger number of bases and a much larger number of personnel and equipment, but we have 4 months to complete it. And so far, there is no reason to believe that we will not be able to complete it. There are challenges, I did refer to them, logistical challenges for sure, but also political challenges that are linked to the control of the bases that MINUSMA will be vacating. We have made clear to the parties that our bases are handed over to the Malian state through their civilian designated representatives, and we are encouraging the parties to reach agreement on issues on which they have differences. I myself engage in discussions with both the authorities and the movements to encourage them to reach an agreement, because the sooner or an agreement will obviously facilitate our work. It will make it easier for us to pull out. It will also preserve the chances of launching the peace process after the completion of MINUSMA's withdrawal. But again, we are on track, and there is no reason to believe that there will be delays. But obviously, the parties have responsibilities, and we do encourage them to fulfill their responsibilities in terms of cooperation with MINUSMA, but also to make sure that they resolve their differences peacefully so as not to complicate further our withdrawal and not to completely jeopardize the prospects for the resumption of the peace process.
Good afternoon. My name is Jordan Dakamse. I work for Jordan News and Jordan Report. Good afternoon, sir. I have a question, thank you. It has a general answer and also a specific one, if possible. A mission is complete when it is mission accomplished. Do you think that your mission is accomplished? Did you finish your job? Were you hoping to stay more in Mali? Are you happy, or you believe that the United Nations has failed in Mali? If you can go, what are you going to do after December 31st? This is the general question. If you can just say how much your mission contribute to the stability in Mali. The specific question, if possible, if you can tell me about Jordan. Jordan lost several good peacekeepers in Mali, hoping for peace there. Now, how can you evaluate what Jordan has done in Mali in terms of the mission, if possible, about only the peacekeepers, Jordanian peacekeepers? I know also their colleagues, also they suffer consequences, and also they lost, in the peacekeeping mission. But if possible, to tell me first about the mission in general, and also in Jordan, if possible. Thank you so much, and wish you good luck.
Yeah, on the first part of your question, I believe strongly, and I did say so this morning, that the mission has made a very tangible contribution to the advancement of peace, security, and stability in Mali. It has impacted the lives of hundreds of thousands, if not millions of Malians in the areas in which it has deployed. It has supported the transition process politically, but also practically. It has supported the peace agreement. And one of the key achievements of the peace agreement was the ceasefire, but also a number of other steps were taken, including with respect to DDR and other processes. We have protected civilians in a number of locations in Mali. Menaka is a good example, but I could also speak more broadly about the stabilization of key urban centers in northern Mali, be it Timbuktu, Kidal, Agalok, Tesselit, Menaka, and Gao, and for which I believe the mission has made an invaluable contribution. We have supported hundreds of thousands of Malians improve their livelihoods at a time of hardships through the projects we have carried out in different parts of the country. We have contributed to the promotion and protection of human rights through our reporting, but also through the capacity building efforts we have been involved in support of the Malian Defense and Security Forces and other stakeholders. We have contributed to the advancement of gender equality, including the participation of women in the peace process. So there is, in my view, a lot that the mission has done, which has contributed effectively to advancing security and stability in Mali. But it is clear that the situation remains serious and extremely difficult. And I think one needs to understand that the mission is acting in support of the Malian authorities and not in substitution of the Malian authorities. And our ability to steer the process is also dependent on the extent to which the parties to the various peace processes or political processes underway in Mali are making efforts to advance the goals they have set for themselves. Clearly, we felt that the mission has still some work to do, and that's why the Secretary General recommended that the mission be extended for 1 additional year. The Malian authorities felt otherwise, and Security Council decided to act on their request. But I believe the mission has made a tremendous contribution, and I expect that the Malians build on the progress we have made in support of their efforts to bring about the lasting peace and stability that people are yearning for. As far as Jordan is concerned, we had a Jordan company which was deployed in Gao and which made also a very significant contribution to our work, not only in Gao, but also in different locations, including in places such as Ansongo, and we valued their contribution. Jordan decided to pull out its unit a few months ago, but I would like to pay tribute to their peacekeepers as much as I pay tribute to all the other peacekeepers for the huge sacrifices made in support of peace and stability in Mali.
We will take a question from Dulcie, then Evelyn, and I think after that we will wrap up.
Thanks very much, Mr. Wane. This is Dulcie Leinbach from Pass Blue. I wanted to ask you, or to confirm, that the peacekeeping mission is actually not doing peacekeeping per se anymore, that they're basically packing up and getting ready to go. So who in the UN in Mali will be liaising with the government on keeping the peace treaty alive? And I wanted to know who you actually work with in the Malian government on the withdrawal, and what's going to happen to China's hospital in Gao. Thanks.
Okay. Good. We're working with the Malian authorities. They have put in place a ministerial team that is led by the Minister of Foreign Affairs, which meets with the leadership of the mission. We do also have meetings involving the Minister of Foreign Affairs and myself, and several meetings at technical level, including one that is taking place tomorrow. And as I indicated again, the coordination mechanisms are working fairly effectively so far, and there is no reason for things to be different in the period ahead. We do still have a residual mandate on the protection of civilians, but with some caveats in the immediate vicinity of our bases, simply because our capacities are significantly decreasing and our ability to protect civilians is, of course, affected as a result. But we do have a limited mandate, which we are performing to the extent possible. We do also have the mandate to facilitate the provision of humanitarian assistance, in particular through the protection of airstrips used by humanitarian agencies, and we still perform that mandate. We're working with the UN country team, with the humanitarians, as well as with the authorities for that task to be taken over by the Malian authorities, and they did indicate that indeed they will take over that task and provide the protection required for the airstrip so that the humanitarian actors can continue to provide the much needed assistance to the needy populations. Once the UN, once MINUSMA puts out, and I did say that UN agencies, funds and programs were in Mali before MINUSMA deployed. They were in Mali while MINUSMA was here, and they will remain in Mali after MINUSMA leaves. They'll continue their work. Obviously, they will work in a different setting without the support of the mission, which had huge capacity. They need to adjust, and they are working towards that end. They will need additional resources, definitely, and that's why I made an appeal today to donors to show generosity in support of the UN agencies and the humanitarian actors so that they can continue their vital work in support of the Malian people. But again, the UN remains engaged. MINUSMA was one expression of the UN support, but the UN support overall will continue through other modalities, and I hope the necessary conditions will be created for these agencies, funds, and programs to deliver an as effective support as possible to the Malian people.
Evelyn?
Thank you, Evelyn Leopold. I want to ask you something about women. It seems from the expert report that everyone wearing a uniform, except for MINUSMA, thinks harassment and rape is sort of their right. Do you see this changing or getting worse after the UN troops are out? And secondly, Wagner, which does its own harassment, how close are they still to the government? Are they protecting it against any domestic rebellion, and are they interfering at all with what the United Nations is doing?
Thank you so much. Maybe let me just specify again that our work is guided by the mandate given to us, and that mandate is spelled out in Resolution 2690. So the tasks we are involved in are those that are provided for in that resolution and geared towards the timely and orderly and coordinated withdrawal of the mission from Mali. As far as I think one of the issues you're referring to probably has to do with the protection of civilians. As I indicated, this is one of the issues we discussed with the Malian authorities during the roundtable we held in early August. We did, of course, brief them on the work we are doing and on what needs to be done to take it forward and consolidate it. They did express their determination to continue those tasks relating to the protection of civilians, and obviously that would require additional resources, additional capabilities, and we hope that they will take the necessary measures to ensure that indeed civilians are protected, and that goes beyond the sheer deployment of uniformed personnel. It also requires a lot of work in terms of reconciliation, human rights, and other related issues to create a more secure environment for civilians. But our role at this point is to avail them with all the information they need for the continuation of that task in an as effective manner as possible.
Mr. Wane, thank you so much for taking the time to join us today from Bamako. Thank you so much. Good luck for the next few months, and thank you so much to all of you for joining us this afternoon. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup. Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye.